This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com. My name is Todd DeWalt, and it's my job to help you, the construction business owner and leader, maximize revenue and eliminate chaos. I have a great interview for you today with Todd Forsman, and here's what you're going to get out of this interview. You're going to learn some of the leadership lessons that Todd picked up during his time in the military and in combat. You're going to hear one particular story of a deadly situation that happened in the Middle East and some of the lessons that Todd learned from it. We'll talk about leadership, we'll talk about business, we'll talk about life lessons. You'll also hear about a problem that he faced in a combat situation that's pretty similar to what construction folks face on a daily basis, and a solution that he has developed as a result of that. And then if you love construction tech, then there's an opportunity that Todd has for you to get in on that you might be interested in. So, great interview. You're not going to want to miss this one. I do have a couple of resources I want to get into your hands because I'm all about eliminating chaos. That's what I'm pretty passionate about. So if you manage a team or you manage a construction project or you manage a business or own a business and the communication is kicking your butt, you're having trouble tracking communication, your guys aren't getting information that they need, then I want to share a couple of things with you. One of the problems that I ran into a few years ago when I was running a company of about 50 employees is that I found that people weren't making decisions that made sense to me. I heard myself say things like, why would they do that? Why did they decide to do that? Well, it wasn't because they were intentionally making bad decisions. It's because they were making decisions based on the best information they had. And they didn't have the best information. So it was on me. The reason they were making bad decisions is because I wasn't pushing good information out to them. So I developed a tool that I share with all of my clients I want to share with you that'll help. If you find yourself wondering, why are they doing that? Why are they doing that? Why aren't they doing something? Then check this out. I developed something that I called the MIT list, the most important things. And I decided what are the most important things for this week, the next 2 weeks, this month. And then I thought through that. I prioritized those things and said, these are the most important things. If nothing else happens, this is what the most important thing is. And then I set A priorities, I set B priorities, and then I had some fill-in work at the bottom of the list. And then I printed that or texted it or emailed it and sent it out to my guys in the field and said, these are the most important things for this week, this month, whatever the case was. This is how you need to make decisions. And it was amazing what happened. So I would encourage you to use the MIT list, the most important things. You decide what are the most important things. Push that out to your people. Let them know, and you'll be surprised at what happens. Now, if you manage a project or a team, then I like to say that your job is to be a broker of information. If you're in leadership, there is so much information flying around, and it's your job to make sure the right people get the right information at the right time at the right level of detail. That is what your job is in leadership. And one of the best ways to do that, if you're looking for a solution to communicate with the right people at the right time and then have a searchable, organized record of all of those communications, then you should probably check out fieldchat.com. It is a text messaging platform that's specifically designed for construction job sites. That's what it does. It doesn't have a whole lot of other features that you don't need. It is all about communication. It integrates with Procore, with PlanGrid, and it puts you in a position where you have the best documentation. Because if you've ever been in a dispute or litigation, you've learned the hard way that he or she who has the best documentation typically wins. So if you want to wrangle your project communication, then head over to fieldchat.com/edge. You can grab your account for 15% off. And frankly, it's only a few bucks per user. It is an absolute no-brainer. So if you're looking for a good way to wrangle communication with your team, on your projects, in your company, go to fieldchat.com. Grab your account for 15% off. Go to fieldchat.com/edge and eliminate what I call the Bermuda Triangle of information. One of the other things that I hear from construction business owners frequently, and I've heard it so frequently over the past few years that I decided to put something together, is, Todd, I need systems. I need systems and processes and systems. It's different every day. Every time we start a project, it's different. Every time we get into the middle of a project, it's constant chaos. There's all of this wasted motion. We're always constantly going back and doing things, and people are stepping on each other's toes, and things are falling through the cracks. It's chaos. We need systems and processes. So I put together some free training for you that will help you get started developing systems and processes. What you're going to get in this free training is you're going to learn how to identify the root cause of your problem so you can stop screwing around with the symptoms. Many people are trying to treat the symptoms of their problems. So, for example, if you are struggling with productivity or profit fade on your projects, or your cash flow is not good, you need to do a root cause analysis. You absolutely have to get to the root cause of your problem. One of the reasons that you haven't been able to solve these problems could be because you're treating the symptoms. So one of the things you're going to get out of this free training series is a powerful, simple way to identify the root cause of your problems. You're also going to learn some of the most common mistakes that people make when they build systems for their construction business, and then you'll learn some secrets, one secret in particular, on how to create a system, how to put together a system in a way that dramatically increases the chances of it working. And it has very little to do with the actual system. It has everything to do with how you develop the system. But you'll get all of that in my free video series, Systematize Your Construction Business. All you have to do is go to constructionbusinessaccelerator.com, and if it's available, when you get there, you'll be able to sign up for it. If not, there's a wait list. I only open this training series up a few times a year, but go to constructionbusinessaccelerator.com and get your hands on the free training series, not secrets, but how to systematize your construction business. And if you're driving or you're working out and you can't get to an internet connection, then send me a text. Let me know what you're looking for, 859-667-2015. Let me know what you're looking for, and I will send you those links. Now, let's get into the interview with Todd Forsman.
Todd Forsman, thanks for being on the podcast. Let's jump into it. We'll talk about your background and some of the pretty cool stuff that you're doing in a few minutes. But a big part of your background was in the military. And if you could, talk about some of the parallels that you've seen between military, special operations, and the construction industry, given that you've worked in both of those sectors.
Sure. So first off, Todd, thanks for having me on the show today. I'm really excited about this opportunity, and the ability to connect with your audience base and the things you have going on today is just great. So thanks for that again. My background, I grew up as a carpenter back in Omaha, Nebraska, and I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps when I was about 17 years old, enlisted in the infantry, deployed a couple times to Asia. I was picked up for an enlisted officer program and got involved with quite a few things. I ended up retiring as out of the intelligence special operations side of the house in a community called the Foreign Area Officer Community. Did a lot of things overseas, built a lot of things. And what I found through my military career was, everything I learned back as a carpenter had a lot of crossovers, making things exist that didn't exist before. Construction itself is extremely important to military folks, especially in the infantry. Wherever you're at, you're building, it's continuous improvement. The skills that I learned as a young man just followed me through. In the leadership specifically, I think it helped me to progress, and it actually helped me progress from the enlisted officer communities. I showed up having, I I started a business with a friend at 16 years old, siding houses. He was the older guy, I was the younger guy. So I guess he started it and I just helped. But I had a passion for doing things, building things, small teams without much guidance and figuring out how to make it work. That's what life in the military is too. You get a little bit of guidance, but you're really kind of on your own, just figuring out what to do and making it happen. Those parallels, I think that's the biggest thing that's going on. You'll see when people transition out of the military, a lot of folks end up back in the construction world because they gravitate towards it. You like working on small teams. You like building things that didn't exist before. You still like using your hands. You like being outside. You like the leadership style is very direct in general. You like just moving through things, solving problems, and getting it done. And, that's what's happened with me. I've kind of taken a different toll. I'm not a carpenter anymore, but I'm building software now. It's just building a different thing. And the tool that we're building is software to help contractors.
So you said something there that surprised me, that in the military, you didn't get a lot of guidance. You're building stuff, small teams, building stuff, creating things, not a lot of guidance. That seems a little, I don't have any military background, but it seems counterintuitive, because the conventional belief is that everything's pretty regimented in the military. But can you expand on that? Like, what does that look like? Small team, maybe there's a situation you were in where small team had to create something, solve a problem, but you didn't have a lot of guidance.
Yeah, and that's a really good question. I would say I get this question a lot, and it depends on which service you were in and what you did. But the Marine Corps and the Special Operations community, we function off of what we call distributed operations, distributed teams, smaller teams, mission type tactics. And really what that means is you get broad right and left lateral limits, and then you're sent out with this small team and you accomplish the mission. There's a famous book in the Marine Corps and all military service called Message to Garcia. Really starts out with a young soldier trying to figure out how to solve a problem. And the message to Garcia is, figure it out. Garcia he goes through this whole journey of where nobody's hand holding him through the process to do it. You need to make this happen, however you do it. And that's what I felt in the military. That's what I felt in the construction world. You get some advice and guidance, but a lot of times I think it is on that entrepreneur, that individual who's started this company to figure out how to build it, how to grow it, and what to do. And sometimes you may not know exactly who to reach out to. Once you do, it's very helpful. But I think the cool thing that makes people successful in the military and outside the military is when they have that mindset and they start doing things on their own, they have that initiative and they have the drive to figure out to do it, they're going to be successful with just a little bit of right and left lateral, rudder steer is what we say in the Navy and Marine terms. If they don't have that initiative, you're not going to move very far. So you asked for an example. We train to this all the time, so I can think of a lot of little things, but relating it to construction, I had one specific incident in Iraq, and it ended up being really challenging to me and the team, but we literally built firm bases, as we call them, or FOBs, forward operational bases. And I used my construction background to help build the security plus the functionality of this base, and just to make us live. There was nobody there with a print. There was nobody there telling us where to put these jersey barriers. There was nobody to tell us which one showed up or what we could use or how we could do it. We used our knowledge as a team and just set it up and made sure it worked along with our Iraqi partners. And we actually did learn from those guys too. They have a different way of looking at things. The materials were different in the area that we were at. We incorporated a lot of what they told us into that setup. So I don't know if that helps, but those are kind of the things that came to my mind.
Yeah. So it was, hey, go set up a forward operating base, period. That was the extent of the orders you were given. And
that's the order.
Figure it out, use what's available. What were some of the challenges of working in an austere environment like that? Overseas, language barrier, different materials. What were some of the biggest surprises to you when you got over there and started to operate in that situation?
For me, I ended, I got to caveat all this with, I ended my career as foreign area officer, a foreign military advisor. So I became a cultural expert. I speak a couple different languages now, and I feel like I have a better understanding than I did at that time. The biggest challenge I had, and I think our unit had, was understanding the cultural context and moving through the challenges associated with not just language, but overall culture. Like getting that order, like, hey, go build a firm base. We're going to look at that from an American perspective. We're generally not going to think about what ramifications that could have to the security structure in general. So for this specific incident, we actually built a portion of it is called a TCP, a tactical control point. And it was a checkpoint on the road. We built up a little firm base with a checkpoint on the road. We didn't think about how closing down the road would affect the entire economy of the town as much as I think we should have, and how that would affect the actual insurgency itself. And ultimately that checkpoint got attacked because it wasn't because it was a big target. It was because the populace was not able to function in the same state it did before economically. And they viewed the problem as that checkpoint. So the bad guys were able to infiltrate through that populace to attack that checkpoint because the populace also didn't like it.
Interesting. So in a way, the measures you put in place maybe made things a little worse in some cases?
I would say initially, yeah. And then that goes back to, we didn't really listen to our Iraqi counterparts as much as I think we should have at the beginning. After we got attacked and we figured out what was going on, then, it wasn't just how we built it, it was the materials we built, how we were controlling what we were controlling, why we were controlling what we thought we needed to control. I think once we started having the conversations with our partners, we understood the dynamics of that situation better, and we created a better system.
Got it. So what was it a matter of getting buy-in from the locals as well as getting feedback on, because in my experience, you can do the same thing. You can build the same thing, take the same step, whatever the case may be, and it will be better received if you at least get buy-in and get input on the front end versus just effectively shoving it down somebody's throat. So how much of it was the local populace feeling like this was getting shoved down their throat, and how much of it was actually getting input from them?
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head with that. Like it was really hard for us to, we wanted to get the input, but the language barriers and other things there became another excuse that was really easy for us to say, like, well, we don't understand exactly what's going on anyway. We think the checkpoint should go here. We think it should look like this. We're just going to do this. From the populace's perspective, that became very challenging because we didn't consult with anybody. It changes the dynamic. Like, we're there thinking we're protecting them, saying outwardly, hey, we're here to protect you and we're going to do all these things. But from their perspective, you're kind of shoving it down their throat. And those are leadership challenges that, again, I think there's a lot of crossover. It may not sound like it right out front, but with just regular construction project, sometimes you may work with a client that kind of knows what they think they want, and you have to figure out how to like turn that into, for example, I'm thinking of something I was talking with my little brother on. I live in Southern California, so our materials here, we don't use a lot of wood outside because it's so sunny and it kind of rots the wood and does all that. Well, my little brother, he works back in Nebraska. They have some issues with this too, but the thing we were debating was I wanted to build an add-on to my deck, which is like a little bar where I could overlook a view that sits out my backyard. I wanted to use a laser to like carve some things on it. My little brother's like, that'll never work. And I said, why? He said, because if you put fine detail on wood and it's in the weather, it's going to like decay right away and it's going to be really, really crappy. And we were kind of butting heads on it. Me as his older brother and also a former carpenter, actually got him into carpentry. It's like, it'll last, it'll do this. But him is also the guy saying, no, it won't. And I've been doing this for 25 years for real, and it'll last for maybe a year. But it just reminded me of like the same discussions I had in Iraq with folks on the projects. Like, you've got the professional and you've got the person that wants whatever it is. You've got to figure out a way to reconcile that and then go forward.
Yeah. So how did you figure out how to do that? What were some best practices you came up with on how to diplomatically work through those situations that may or may not apply to the construction industry?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. So, I mean, first off, the full story with that TCP, I mean, it got blown up. We lost 5 Marines there. It was a really difficult situation, and a very hard lesson learned for myself personally, and then my company in general. Um, we immediately learned that we need to have better buy-in. We need to figure out better ways to secure ourselves in the area, better ways to do all that, which basically meant more communication. And this is where the parallel comes in to construction. Again, I'll use my little brother probably a lot through this podcast because, it's the easiest example for me to go to. He's not known as like the best communicator on the planet. Like, I've always been a talker. He's kind of been more quiet, and now he runs his business back in Nebraska, and his wife does most of the business development and talking for him. It's not because he doesn't know how to, it's just he doesn't do it as well. But what I saw was, from my outside eyes, when his wife came into his business and was able to take over that element of business development of, like actually talking to customers, figuring out what they want, making it continuous conversation. So it's like a whole customer resource management process, like from getting them on board. Once they're on board, finish the project, keep them on board, figure out a way to come back and do maintenance with them, like develop a long-term relationship with them. She's really good at that. And his business is functioning really, really well now because he's really good at building stuff and taking care of, like that part of the business. And his wife is really good at the other piece, and it works. So for us, bringing it back to Iraq, we had to find the right people in the unit that had those skills. And a lot of times it ends up being your intel folks, or sometimes the special operations community units that would augment you and take a slightly different view of what's going on, understanding the culture, understanding the entire context of what's going on. So I don't know, rambling a little bit there, but I think there's a lot of value to that for folks that are out there running their own construction business as they look at, hey, who am I trying to do business with? How am I communicating with them? When does the process start? Does it ever actually end? Should it end? Should I keep it going? Those types of things.
Yeah, that's good. So communication is important. Make sure you see the entire picture, especially if you're doing something that impacts the community. And then secondly, ask the question, who is the right person to do the communication? Sometimes it may not be the superintendent. It may not even be the business owner. It may be somebody else. I was involved with a project about 10 years ago. It was an 18-story senior living community right at the edge of a residential neighborhood. And I mean, there were single family houses right next door to this high rise. And the community was pretty concerned about it. And it was very important. There were a couple of times when community involvement actually stalled out approvals on this $100 million project. So I was really surprised to learn that like one phone call from one concerned citizen to the right person in the city could stall out a $100 million project. So no amount of shoving down their throat is going to make that go away. So local populace, whether you're in Iraq or Cincinnati or Nebraska or wherever, don't underestimate the importance of communicating with them. What are some other leadership lessons that you took away from the military that you feel like are very applicable to business?
Yeah, that's a great question too. And I'll start with saying it took me a while to realize this. I mean, I retired in 2015, so I've been in the commercial sector mostly as an entrepreneur since then. And I really feel like the leadership traits and principles in the military and the leadership management, like discussion in the civilian world, they're almost the same thing, just slightly different words. So I do Spanish and Portuguese. They're languages that are really close, but they're not the exact same. Kind of analogize it to that too. So it's like close enough that you can kind of get what's going on, but it really helps if you actually have a full understanding of the other languages. So in the military side, we speak in a lot of, of course, acronyms. And then especially in the Marine Corps, we have prescripted ways of talking about leadership. So we have leadership traits and principles. There's 11 of them. Every Marine knows them, and you kind of go down the path, and you can kind of see what they are. I think that level sets us as an organization, and it imbues in us from like day one that even when you're a really junior rank, you're still a leader. You're especially in the military. I mean, the system is designed such that if your boss gets shot and is no longer there, you are now your boss. It's designed to be like that. I think in the commercial side, it's not quite as direct on that, but it's always good to understand the job of the person at least 2 levels above you. So your boss and your boss's boss. If you look at that, I think it makes it a little bit easier to be on the team and move towards a common goal. The other thing I would say for the Marine Corps, and this is very true in business as well, it's we there's 2 things that are really important: mission accomplishment and troop welfare, in that order. So mission accomplishment is always number 1. Troop welfare, we want to take care of everybody, we want to do it, but it's always number 2. Business is very similar to that. You have a task that someone is paying you to do. I think that mission is that you've got to accomplish that. Troop welfare, you definitely have to balance it, make sure it's there, but you got to figure out how to accomplish the mission. If you keep that in the back of your mind, I think you're going to drive forward in a really positive direction, and everybody will recognize that. And I think that brings you more customers, brings you more traction, and keeps things going because you're doing what you said you were going to do. You're building your reputation off of that and just growing.
Yeah. What were the leadership principles?
Yeah. So there's 11 of them, 11 leadership traits and principles, we call them. There's an acronym for remembering them. So in the Marine Corps, it's JJ, Did, Tie, Buckle. And I've been retired for a little while, so some Marine out there is probably listening is going to get me on this, but justice or judgment, JJ, Did, Tie, Buckle, dependency, integrity, decisiveness, tact. I'd have to actually pull up the list. I'm feeling bad because I'm a little bit old on it. But JJ, Did, Tie, Buckle, like you ask Marines, they'll know that. 11 leadership traits and principles. It's like know yourself and seek self-improvement is one of the big ones. It's one of the ones that I always remember, because if you don't know yourself and you can't acknowledge your own weaknesses and you don't try to grow, I don't think you can grow as a leader. Or in this case, we're related back to being a business owner. You can't grow your business because you're not acknowledging. You would just bring it back to that communication thing. If I'm not the best communicator in my business, then I need to find a person that can help me communicate on an as-needed basis, or I need to get better at communicating.
Do something to fix that weakness rather than make excuses for it and blame other people, maybe. Yeah. Let's talk about leadership traits. What, in your experience in the military, what was one of the, or maybe the most damaging or devastating traits of a poor leader that made them an ineffective leader?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I think for me, the people I saw that struggled the most with leadership were the people that had to rely on rank or title to get the leadership to happen, or management to happen. In my opinion, if you have to, pull rank to get a group of people to move forward on a common path, you probably need to reassess and figure out which direction you're going. But I kind of changed, and this is probably sounds a little bit counterintuitive. In the military, certain times we have the rank structure for a reason. You say like, hey, we're attacking that hill and there's people on the top of that hill with machine guns that are shooting down on it. Like, there's a lot of logic that's going to tell people like, we don't want to go up that hill. Is there another way? Sometimes that logic's good. It may lead to a different type of attack or whatever it is. But sometimes it's also, we just got to power through this, So on the business side, I think that's important too. And you'll see a lot of like memes on Facebook, and they have like a picture that shows the difference between a leader and a manager. And the one that always sticks in my head, it shows like four guys trying to move like a big boulder. And the manager's like standing there pointing at the 4 guys, and they're trying to push the boulder. And it shows the leader, he's like on the front rope pulling at the same time with the 4 guys that he's asking to help move the rock. That's something that's really important to me, and that I really got beat into me as a Marine, and it's stuck with me for now. It's leadership by example. So your first job in the infantry as a leadership role is a fire team leader. You are in charge of 3 other folks. You got different weapon systems, and essentially the job of a fire team leader is, going back to that example, if there is a machine gun facing at you, somebody has to figure out and have the courage to like stand up and buddy rush towards that thing and start shooting at it. If the fire team leader and the squad leader and the platoon sergeant and the platoon commander, all the way back to the general, nobody's doing that, the organization will not move forward. So fire team leaders, they're NCOs, non-commissioned officers, and we call them the backbone of the Marine Corps. They're generally the folks that are going to do that. They're going to lead by example. They're going to go through the thick of everything. They're going to sit right next to you, sit in the same hole that you're sleeping in at night. When it's time to attack, they're the ones that usually stand up first, start running towards it, and figure out how to move the needle. I think that's important. Leadership by example. I would never ask a person in the military world or in my business to do something I wouldn't personally do. Or in most cases for me, that I haven't personally done already. So for example, like with Karl, my company that we're doing now, I have to do customer discovery. I have to go out and work with contractors, make sure the software I'm building actually meets their needs. I have to personally go out and talk to contractors. I need to talk to contractors going to do that. It's a little bit uncomfortable to go find a contractor and say, hey, I'm working on this new thing. It hasn't existed. I really want you to try it. It's like trying to show somebody a piece of artwork that you think is really cool, but you're not exactly sure what they're going to say. I have a team of folks in my company that helps me do that. But I lead by example by being the first person that goes in and says, like, no, we built it. We're going to go ask them and try to get people to use this with us and use their feedback to grow it.
Yeah, so let's talk about your software, and we'll get to what you're doing with the construction industry in a few minutes. But when you were overseas working in Iraq, you told me before we got started recording that there were some situations where you had to use technology to solve problems for military applications that have led to a solution for contractors. But talk about this technology solution that came about from having to work with the Iraqi army, but not being able to go out and work with them. I'm probably not doing a very good job explaining that, but if you would, talk about where this technology solution came from.
Sure. So, the basics of the solution I'm working on, Karl, is we connect homeowners or home repair pros with a video service call. So basically a video call, like a FaceTime call, with some augmented reality overlaid on it. So a home service pro that has expertise can share that expertise either through a bid or whatever it is with the homeowner. Where that came from was my experience as I transitioned from the Marine Corps. One of my first jobs outside of the Marine Corps was I worked on as an asymmetric warfare advisor on a special operations team. I'm giving all military terms for you here, but it's called JET, Joint Expeditionary Team. And essentially what we did was worked with foreign partners and U.S. partners, so U.S. units that were working with foreign partners to accomplish missions. At the time, the administration back here in the U.S. Had relegated everybody to bases. So U.S. personnel could not leave the bases to go forward to fight ISIS. That was challenging for us. The normal way we operate as advisors, asymmetric warfare advisors, special operations advisors, is 1, 2, 3, 4 of us embed with a partner nation unit, and then we go out and do the fight. And we're kind of a consultant. So we're one person standing there, and we tell other folks what to do or help them move through challenging situations. In this case, we couldn't go forward to do that. But we had technology that would allow us to do a version of that, which was FaceTime. So we had iPads. We issued iPads to partner soldiers, and that allowed us to communicate with them. And then we'd say, show us what you see, and then we could tell them to the best of our ability what we thought we would do in that situation if we were there. That concept stuck in my mind. My wife, she works in medicine. I came back and I started seeing things pop up with telemedicine. Telemedicine is a very similar kind of construct where, instead of having to drive all the way to the doctor's office and wait in line for the whole time and see the doctor and get told like, hey, you've got a skin rash and you need this cream, you could do it over a video call. So I started recognizing the power of, having this computer in our pocket that all of us have nowadays, having the video call there and using it, not just to do like a Zoom call where we talk to each other and we get a little bit more face to face, but flipping the camera around and using it in like a James Bond-esque way where you've got, or a NASA type way, like, Houston, I have a problem. And then Houston's got 20 brains back there that tells you, like, what do you see? Okay, that means this, and turn this way, turn that way. That technology didn't exist in the past. So average Joe couldn't get that help. But now it does exist, and we can use it in the home services space to access the knowledge that's in home service professionals, contractors' minds to help average Joes, which I'll call myself an average Joe now. I started life as a carpenter, but I don't remember a lot of this stuff. So, when YouTube's not cutting it for me now, it would be super awesome if I could call a pro, turn on FaceTime, flip it around, show them what I see, ask for advice, figure out if it's worth me doing it on my own, or figure out if I need to actually get a pro out there. That's where the whole idea came from.
And what were some of the objections or obstacles that you ran into in the military application when you're sending people out there with iPads? Was there resistance initially from anybody, or what were some of the obstacles you had to get over in order to get that rolled out?
Oh yeah, lots of obstacles, and there still are. We have active contracts with the military. We're taking our solution and adopting it so special operations folks can use this in the same way now. But at that time, the main obstacles were, it's military, so it's always security. And they mean security of the actual communication between the expert and the person that needs the expertise was one, and then the security of the devices. So the partners will lose a device, so we'll lose the iPad, meaning they sold it out in town or did whatever. Those challenges came up and you had to work around. The other one is, there's legal issues. People get worried about. So for us, a lot of times we help partners call for fire or tell them where to shoot. Can you actually see enough of what's going on FaceTime to give that level of advice? People are concerned about that. Bring those same problems over to the contractor side. I get these same questions every day. Like, well, if I'm operating a consultant capacity and I tell, I'm an electrician and I tell, a client to make sure to go turn off the power box and then start working on wires, and they didn't turn off the power box and they get zapped. Who's liable? And those are things we still have to deal with. We have to work through that. We deal with terms and conditions. We deal with it with training of the folks that are on our system. Just make sure you see those things that are common sense to the expert may not be common sense to the person that needs the expertise. So you have to take a couple extra steps to communicate that through.
So we'll talk about exactly what Quick Karl does in a few minutes, and then you've got an opportunity to extend to some of the construction leading edge audience on how to get involved with Quick Karl. But what are some of the problems that Quick Karl solves, either for contractors, for homeowners, or anybody else involved in this process? What are the problems that you're solving with this solution?
Yeah, I'd say, Quick Karl is a platform that helps on both sides of the market. So we help homeowners and we help contractors solve what have become problems that are so normal to us. People just stop looking for solutions. So for example, from the homeowner perspective, you have problems and you don't have the knowledge you need to solve them immediately. Certain tools started to show up like Google and YouTube, and you can, train yourself and educate yourself a little bit, but a lot of times you don't have the actual full knowledge to understand even what's on that video without talking to another person and seeing what's going on. That's one. Two is expertise costs time and money to show up. So your traditional service call from a homeowner perspective, that can take you, a day to 2 weeks to schedule, depending on the availability of people in the area and what you need done. Sometimes it can cost up to, $50 to $250 for the contractor to cover the time to come out to give you a bid or to see what's going on with that. Quick Karl gives homeowners the ability to do most of that through a video service call immediately and for only $10, which is something that we find that our homeowners are very willing to pay. They just haven't had a good way to do that in the past. That was another problem. It was hard to transfer money. It's not hard to transfer money anymore. We built it into the system just like Uber. It happens automatically. And it happens in small increments, and nobody has to do anything. It's really easy. From the contractor side, the problems are a little bit different. So the contractor is running a business. They have to cover their costs. So a lot of times homeowners don't think about that or recognize that, but contractor has to figure out how to get out to your house, cover the gas time, figure out if the project's worthwhile, figure out if you're an actual paying customer, and figure out how to make a business out of this. That costs time and money. Generally, contractors pay for leads from a variety of different places. Not all leads are qualified. Not all leads turn into real business. And it can be really frustrating from a contractor's perspective. Quick Karl helps solve that by giving contractors the ability to vet homeowners in real time and to get paid while they do it. Our business model is such that we're not selling leads. We only get paid if the contractor gets paid. And I think that's a really, really powerful tool. The other thing that contractors have, and we're really working on this, is we're not just a video call. We are planning on implementing augmented reality over the live video call. So contractors have the ability over a live video call to, draw circles, put a laser pointer on it, to actually physically measure a room without driving out to the site, which gives the contractor the ability to do a remote bid. Again, saving them time, money, effort, and allowing this, business transaction that traditionally occurred between homeowners and, home service pros or contractors that took a lot of time to develop to happen really, really quickly and easily. So that's our goal, is to stay in that space and solve those types of problems.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. What are some best practices that you found for your contractors who are using this service currently?
Yeah, so I got to start that with a caveat too. We're really early stage in getting the solution out. So we've only got, about half a dozen contractors that use it. And we learn every day with them those best practices. The things I'll say is it goes back to communication. This is a new solution and a new concept to the homeowners as well. So it takes a little bit of patience from both sides of the equation to work through that. Just getting the homeowner initially, it happens fast once they get it, but to take a FaceTime call in the video call and not just be looking at each other face to face and tell them, like, I need you to turn your camera around and I need you to walk me over to the left. I need you to touch on this, and basically troubleshoot through another person. That's a step that people have to learn. Once they learn it, they love it because, it saves them a whole bunch of time and they get paid to do that rather than having to drive out to the house and do it. The other challenge I have is right now, the way I set up the system, there's two ways for the homeowners and the contractors to find one another and to connect. Ultimately, I would like it so many homeowners are on the system. There's such a mass of homeowners on the system that contractors can come on the other side of the system and mark themselves available, just like an Uber driver would in the morning, and they can take demand. We don't have that yet. So what we have is on the professional side of our platform, we built in a really easy way for contractors to directly link to prospective and current customers with what we call a direct link. So they can text a link or email a link to a prospective or current customer that gets that customer to download the app, input their credit card, and immediately be connected back to that contractor for a video service call, a paid interaction where that contractor is going to earn money. That is also new. So right now, we teach that in a couple different ways. Usually that's me personally or one of my contractor relation team physically showing the contractors how to do that. Ultimately, we'll have some in-app training on that. But I would say those are the two biggest challenges right now.
Gotcha. And I want to get to the Quick Karl opportunity in a few minutes, but what are some lessons that you've learned starting a business? You're in the startup phase of a software company. What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned from going through that process?
That's another great question. Todd, you ask a lot of great questions. I would say the biggest lesson I think I've learned so far is starting a business is an endurance sport. I've heard a couple folks say that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And the people that keep figuring out a way to put their right foot in their left foot and keep one foot in front of the other and going down the path are likely to be successful. Most folks tap out really, really quickly. And and it's really hard to overcome. I think, we're probably talking to a lot of other business owners there, and there's good days and bad days. You're on this roller coaster of like, oh, I'm feeling really good today, we're doing awesome. And then, the next day you're like, I must be the worst entrepreneur on the planet, can't get this thing to function. And then you kind of go up and down. I think if you just keep powering through that, you stick to your vision, you'll end up doing well. You'll persevere. You'll figure out how to get that message to Garcia and solve the problem that you're trying to solve.
So perseverance is a consistent theme that I've heard from a lot of people that I interview. What are some practical ways that you persevere? Like, how do you deal with the bad days? Do you have a morning routine? Do you have a team? What are some practical things you do to help? Maybe it's something you've done to build perseverance, but what's some advice? Let's put it this way. If somebody said, Todd, I want to build my perseverance, what would you tell them to do?
The number one thing that I would tell them on that is a lesson I learned, again, the hard way. I think, being a guy, being a Marine, being a headstrong person, I thought I could do this all my own. Like, I'm going to power through this all my own, and I'm going to make all this happen. And that's a good quality to have. And I think it does help me get through it, but I can't, and I can admit that now. I cannot do and build this business on my own. I need the help of others. I need to build groups and reach out to folks that have gone through this process before me, get their advice. I need peer groups as well. It helps me I talk to other CEOs and founders all the time. It's in like a safe space. We're not doing everything's perfect. We're all going, it's more of, it's a business. We're working on it, but we can share some more open things of, it's tough. I'm working on this problem. Have you had that problem before? And you kind of work through that. Having a group dynamic, it takes a village type of mentality has helped me keep the business alive and move it to where it's been. And to try to bring this vision of changing the way people connect in this space moving forward. I think if I continued to try to plug at it alone, it would have died, 3 years ago.
Good advice. In business and in whether it's in construction or software, I have people come to me and they have this great idea, and they feel like it's about the idea. They feel like they've got this $1 million idea, this new way to build a mousetrap or whatever. In your opinion, what's more important, the idea or the execution, or is it something else?
Yeah. So again, I started kind of in that same boat when I first started. It was like, man, I must be the smartest guy on the planet. I had this idea. I got to figure out how to get a patent, like make sure nobody attacks this, and have all these plans, grandiose designs around it. I very quickly came to learn and acknowledge that first off, if you have the idea and nobody else has had it, it's probably not that good of an idea. Is part one. And I've heard that said a bunch of different ways, but the bottom line for me is execution becomes everything. So anybody can have the idea to go start a business or build whatever widget or mousetrap. The people that are successful figure out how to actually keep going and go down the path, and then they break through whatever barrier comes in front of them. I think most folks stop at the first barrier. Some folks don't even get to the barrier. They let the barrier be mental. It's in their head. They're like, well, this is going to happen. It's going to be hard, so I'm not even going to try it. And it stops at, the idea came out when you're drinking beer with your buddies and you throw it out there and it moves, doesn't even make it to the next morning when you wake up. Other folks say, I'm going to figure out how to build this and keep going. And when those obstacles come, I'm going to break through them. And I'm going to find a way to get to the other side. If I don't know how to do that on my own, I'm going to ask for help from others, or I'm going to learn. I'm going to find a way, whatever it is. And those are the folks that I've seen that I try to surround myself with. And I ask questions of them, ask for advice. I go to them in a more vulnerable state than, again, that was probably the hardest for me. I'm a Marine. It's really hard to be like vulnerable in that state and go to other folks and say like, hey, I need help on this, or I would like to hear your perspective on what you think of this and how I could move forward, rather than just try to box everybody off and just do it on my own.
Good advice. Yeah, I call that there are objective focused people and then there are obstacle focused people. And I've worked with both. And objective focused people, they see the roadblock, but they're always looking for a way around it, under it, through it, over it, whatever. Then there are obstacle focused people, and all they see are the obstacles. So
Yep.
it's like I played a lot of baseball. So the objective focused people would see all the green space in the outfield between the three outfielders. But the obstacle focused person, they would hit it right at the person because that's what they're focused on. So,
Yep.
yeah. Let me ask you this. This is a little sidebar question. When you're looking at bringing somebody onto your team, either hiring someone, bringing them on to your team as an advisor, whatever, what are some of the key traits that you look for?
Yeah. So that's a great question too. And for me, it goes back to leadership traits and principles. And one of the most important to me is integrity. When I'm bringing folks onto the team or wanting them to be a part of the mission, I want to create a space that they know we could have open discussions. They can tell me those things. Like, I don't want to hire people that just say, yes, 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 we're going to go this way. I also don't want to hire people that say no, no, no to every single thing. I want to work with and be on teams with people that objectively look at what's going on and have discussions about it and figure out how to move forward. And that's what I look for. That starts with integrity, trust, the ability to have those types of conversations. It's foundational in those two concepts, I think.
And what sort of questions do you ask, or what do you look for that are indicators of integrity or the lack of integrity?
This is so depends on if we're talking in sales, business development, certain areas there becomes a gray area on vision compared to whatever it is, and but I'll still ask people kind of some of your traditional questions of tell me a little bit about something that was really difficult for you and how you moved through it. Tell me a time you failed, like actually a time you failed and how you grew from it. If they're not willing to do it in an initial setting, they're probably not willing to move forward on it as a team. The other thing I really like to do, and it's probably what all of us do too, is some type of referral. So especially, I'm used to working on small teams, so I like to, make sure I get a good referral from somebody saying, like, I worked with so-and-so on this and they were awesome. They did X, Y, Z, validate and vet.
Gotcha. So if you ask somebody the question, tell me about a time you failed, and they say, I always overachieve, and I fail at just meeting the expectation. I always just blow past the expectation. I'm just too awesome. As Ricky Bobby would say, I just piss excellence. Yeah. Maybe that's not the best answer, right?
If you're not first, you're last. Yeah. That's the type of, there's a part of that you want the confidence there, but you want a person that's not, I think you want a person on the team that's not just putting up fake confidence. So I would push them harder on that and say, got it. I piss excellence as well. Maybe see if they have the humor in there, and then ask for, now tell me a real story. And, it's okay if it was a failure. I fail all the time. And sometimes I may lead that conversation and tell one of my failures first, to kind of open the door. But I'm looking for, team members that, that foundation of trust and integrity, all that's got to be there, but they've also got to have the vision and the passion to actually want to do it. It's really, really hard. Like finding the right team members, especially at the startup stage, is super hard. Again, I'll go back to my little brother. He's asked me this question too. He's trying to hire now. His business is growing. He's trying to figure that out. And he's a single person shop with his wife helping him now. And now he's got my little cousin helping him. And he went to family because family ends up being an easy solution, because you feel like you can kind of do that. There's all the old adages like don't miss family and business and whatever it may be, but sometimes that's the easiest one to go to. However you do it, I think you need to develop relationships in a way where you're just being clear about what's going on and finding the right level of motivation for whatever position you're hiring. Sometimes that may not be a full employee, may not be a partner. It may just be like another contractor to help with that specific piece for that specific time or whatever it is.
Yep. Good advice. So let's talk about quick, Karl. What you're up to right now, and then how the Construction Leading Edge podcast listener audience can get involved with what you're doing.
Yeah. So Quick Karl, like I said, we're basically telemedicine, but for your house. So we're really passionate about creating new opportunities specifically for contractors and home service pros to be able to connect with homeowners in this unique way using a video service call that allows the home service pro to be paid instantly for sharing their advice and expertise over whatever geography. My little brother lives in Nebraska, and he's done umpteen calls with me here in California to help me solve problems. Our first plumber is in New York, and he helps me in California. That's the power of our system. We're trying to figure out ways to get I like to say, we arbitrage knowledge over time and geography. So in the process where we're doing that, we have a fully functional platform. So it's available on both Apple and Android. There's two sets of apps. Think of it like Uber. So you've got an Uber rider app and an Uber driver app. For us, you have a Quick Karl homeowner app and a Quick Karl Pro app. I am very focused on the Quick Karl Pro app and developing our relationship with contractors. And right now I'm actively recruiting for what we call our plank owner program. For those of you that aren't Navy and Marines, a plank owner is it's a naval term that's given to the first members of the crew of a ship, which help work out the kinks on that ship and get it actually floating and pushing forward. Our product is fully functional. It works right now, but there's still a little bit of kinks, and I need help. Our company needs help from the people that will use it to find those kinks and work them out. That's what the Plank Owner program is all about. So we're actively recruiting for pros that are interested in being involved in this story from day one, using the software, connecting to real customers, and then providing us with true, honest feedback of that experience. And then if they're interested, working with us to see the changes they recommended to the software and the buttons, everything that's on the interface of the Pro app, to see us move it around based on what they tell us. This is a small cadre of folks, and the goal is to spread it out over geography, so that we can pull in the right amount of information from the right different folks, not just geography, but different specialties within the trades as well. So if you guys are interested in that type of thing, please look us up. The website is www.quickkarl.com. And you can go to Become a Pro, scroll down, and join the Plank Owner program. Send us the form, and we'll figure it out. If you want to skip the Plank Owner program and you want to just try out the app, I highly encourage you to go to either the Play Store or the App Store and download Quick Karl Pro. It's going to take you through a thing. You'll immediately have your direct link, which you can connect to customers with and start getting paid. You can also send me personally an email anytime. It's Todd at Quick Karl, TODD at quickkarl.com. And I would be more than happy to spend some time with you and see what you think of what we've got going on.
Sounds great. Good stuff. So you've got an audience of a few thousand construction business owners and leaders. Other than the Quick Karl opportunity, which is a pretty exciting opportunity to get in on, I'm sure there are a lot of people that will jump on that. What's a message that you'd like to get out there to the construction industry, to a group of progressive, leadership-minded folks in the construction industry?
I'd like to tell you guys thank you. You literally build our nation, and I don't think people take the time to recognize and say those words enough. Thank you guys very much for what you do. I'm happy to be back involved in the community. I kind of still wish I was swinging a hammer some days, but then I remember super hot days of swinging a hammer and carrying stuff, and I don't think I could handle it anymore. So, but I really do appreciate everybody that continues to do that. I also want you guys to know that it's not just about swinging a hammer. Tying this back to Quick Karl and what we do, the things that you guys know how to do, you guys and gals know how to do and do every single day, it's not common knowledge. And in my opinion, the system needs to change, and you should be rewarded for that knowledge. So that's what we've tried to build with Quick Karl, is a way for you to share your expertise and a way for homeowners to be able to incrementally pay for that, because they also want to. They may not seem like it all the time, but people do want to do business and make sure, folks that are really good at whatever they're good at, the other folks want to pay them. It's been hard. It's really hard to write a check or pull out a $5 bill or do whatever. Now it's all digital and it happens immediately. I think it's going to be good.
Good stuff. Well, I appreciate it. Best of luck with everything you're up to. Thanks for being on the podcast. Thanks for sharing, and look forward to a bunch of folks listening to this podcast signing up for the Plank Owner program.
I appreciate it, Todd. Thanks again for the time today.
You bet.
Be sure to check out what Todd Forsman is up to at his website. Also, be sure to go to fieldchat.com/edge. Grab your account of FieldChat for 15% off. Start wrangling your project communication, eliminating chaos. And if you want to systematize your business, then the best thing I could do for you is get you a copy of my free training series, Systematize Your Construction Business. And you can do that at constructionbusinessaccelerator.com. If it's not available when you get there, there's a button you can click on to join the wait list, and I'll send it out to you when it is available the next time. If you are a construction business owner and you need some help clarifying vision and direction, maybe you're dealing with shiny object syndrome, maybe you're not sure what to do, you're struggling with chaos and you need some help, then I would be glad to help you. If you own a business, then go schedule a free strategy session with me, and we can talk about how I can help you. I've got several coaching programs available. I have a peer group program. I have a one-on-one coaching program. And you can go to constructionleadingedge.com/call and schedule your free strategy session with me, and we'll talk through what you're dealing with, and I'll help you out however I can. As always, I appreciate the ratings and the reviews and the messages. If you get value out of this podcast, if you could do me a favor and do two things. One, go into the podcast player of your choice and leave a rating and a review. That helps get the podcast in front of other people. The algorithms like ratings and reviews. And then if there's somebody else that you know who's in the construction industry, thinking about getting into it, and they could use this information, get some value out of it, then share it with them. I would appreciate it. There's an incredible amount of value in all of these podcast episodes, all of these interviews. Business owners, industry experts, guys like Todd Forsman, and I want to get it out there to as many people as possible. So if you could help me do that, I would appreciate it. And thank you for listening. I will see you next time.